Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Wednesday. Yes, filling in for one, Dan Strafford, as I get some vacation coming up here this weekend. We've done a whole bunch of juggling, and I am joined today by special guest Rinpack. He wasn't even supposed to be here.
Yeah, you just had to fill in. Just the time of the year, just juggling, like you said. Excited to be on to talk about the Wednesday 9 game slate. How are things going with you, Emac?
It's pretty good. I actually had a good night last night with basketball, and then had a I don't know if it was a stat correction or if I looked before the goalies wins were put in before the end of the final game. But I woke up with a little more winnings in hockey than I had started out with. I was going to be down by a buck or two, and then I ended up by about $5 or $6. I only play about $50 a night in hockey, so it worked out in my favor. But hockey's been a nice little run there for me. I've got a good 15% ROI on it. So I've just been using the Osmo projections, and Alex puts out rankings for lines, power plays, etc. So it's been a pretty good investment in time, in my opinion.
For sure. And I've definitely heard Jake does a phenomenal job with the hockey, so I highly do recommend checking it out. I'll for sure dabble with it during the week-long NBA All-Star break. I usually do have some fun just trying different things out. We'll see how it goes. What All-Star break's coming up, so we'll see how it goes this year.
Yeah, and the other nice thing is this is one of those times where it's great to have the Slack or the premium Slack, because they like literally just now sent out a message, and they said one of the guys for Vegas, Jonathan Martial, is not out on the ice skating, and I'm able to on air here just quickly go do a swap and replace of him from my lineups. I don't think anybody else has any sort of push notifications or anything like that for hockey. So what we do is an all channel alert here, and if you are subscribed to the hockey channel, you'll get it. It gives you, like, if anybody's used Slack, it sounds like a little knocking door or something like that is the little noise feature I've got it set up for. But anyway, you hear that, and then hey, I need to go read the message and take action. Worked out very well. Just saved me a lot
Speaking
of headache.
speaking of subscribing, I think people should check out our Happy 2020 promo. So if you guys use our promo code 2020, you'll get Osmo Plus Platinum for $20 for 20 days, and that will give you a plethora of features we have. For example, what Emac just said, our premium Slack channel, which is highly instrumental for any late news, how you react to it. There's so many sharp minds that are in there, and you'll get a chance to look at our ownership projections, player projections from Alex, his rankings. It's just a bundle of great, valuable information to take your DFS game to the next level.
Look at that. I don't even have to do the reads. I've got Renpack here with me. But we've got the other thing about Slack is a lot of times when Eddie's on his shows, those days he'll stay in Slack for another hour or so, or if there's an upcoming lock time for what do they call them, the express slates or turbo slates, he'll stick around and answer questions. Plus, if you're on a late swap site, a lot of times what I do is if I'm on air and there's only one 7 o'clock game or a 7 o'clock game and a 7:30 game, I may just skip those and set my lineups for later. So it's nice having that resource available to you, because it's not in the rest of the crunch up until lock. So he has a little more time to answer questions. Now, that's not every day, but more often than not, he'll stick around and do that. But that's a benefit that we don't put on the site, but it's one that you get pretty regularly, in addition to everybody else that's in there. Plus, we have a lot of regulars that are super smart and have some good ideas off each other. But let's get into our slate here. We got a 9-gamer. We're going to go by position. We have some injury news. I'm going to hit a little bit of it here real quick. Let's just look by dollar value here. I'm just looking at Yahoo. They're our presenting sponsor. We'll talk about them. We've got Giannis Antetokounmpo dealing with the sore back. He is probable. This game is in Golden State. We do not have an over-under yet, but I've got to guess that Milwaukee may even be double-digit favorites in Golden State. You've got Domantas Sabonis, who's dealing with the sore knee. They're going to know more after shoot-around on Wednesday, but you'll want to keep an eye on that. Miami is playing in Indianapolis, so tough matchup for him, but they'll need him at full strength if they're going to stay close. Bradley Beal, again, dealing with that sore right calf. He has missed 5 of the last 6 games. He's questionable. Kemba Walker has missed 2 games with an illness. He's still dealing with an illness, but we'll have to wait until Tuesday for additional status update for him. Malcolm Brogdon did not travel with the team on their 2-game road trip, but he's listed as questionable. The Indiana Pacers are back at home, but we don't have a full status update on him. Lauri Markkanen, as you guys all know from Monday, went from being likely to miss a few games to playing and starting. So he is probable with an ankle injury. Draymond Green got the last game off, but he will be playing against the Bucks. Coach Steve Kerr had already pointed that out, that the other day was just for rest. I personally am hoping, Rinpack, that this could be one where we get a motivated Draymond. We'll have to see. Marcus Morris was out with a neck injury on, let's see, lost track of days already, on Tuesday. So we'll have to see what happens. It's a back-to-back for New York. They're in Los Angeles tonight. That game is just about to tip off as we're recording this. They're heading out to Utah for Wednesday night. Elf Payton back with New York. He was out for personal reasons. He should be good to go. Rondé Hollis Jefferson likely will be starting. It's a back-to-back for Toronto. They may be without Fred VanVleet for a couple weeks there. Norman Powell may be coming back by the weekend, but we'll have to keep an eye if he pops in early, and I think that hits most of our key ones. If we come across any more, we'll let you know. And then there's a few other players who are just out. We'll talk about them as we get here by position. But Rinpack, I'm turning this over to you. Take us to the top here, the premium point guard list.
Guard position. On the slate, obviously, who else to start off besides Luka Doncic, who has been phenomenal this year, and he's been super exciting. I personally thought he should have been an all-star this year. He's a virtual lock this year. I would love for him to start. He's been so exciting. He's priced up, rightfully so. He had another monster game last year, and other hosts on the Awesemo NBA team have mentioned, like, oh, is Luka worth it? Is Luka worth it? Luka's pretty much reaching that territory when Russell Westbrook won his MVP. It was like 60 every day, 60 plus every day in terms of fantasy points. I'm a huge fan of Luka there. I know he's playing Denver, and everyone has been a little skeptical when people do match up against Denver because it's going to be a slow grinding it out matchup. But until Luka proves me wrong, I'm going to be excited to find a way to roster him. He's priced all the way at $58 on Yahoo. It's tough. I'm hoping for injury news to open up some value for him. Let me pull up his DraftKings price. But what's your thoughts on Luka to lead the way in the point guard position?
Yeah, he is coming in as the, depending on the site, first or second most expensive players. And we've got, so this is a fun one. So we'll kind of focus on him and James Harden for a second. So Russell Westbrook, we know, is out. That was one of the ones that I didn't mention off the top. But this is a back-to-back for Houston, game 1. This is in Atlanta. Harden is 12-8 on DK. Luka is 12-3. Giannis is 11-5. They shuffle on FanDuel. It is Doncic at 10-5, Giannis at 11-4, that tough small forward position, and then Harden is the third priced amongst them at 11-2. So they're all within $300, and then they're all within $2 on Yahoo. It's 59, a new site high for Harden, 58 for Luka, and 57 for Giannis. So one of our big questions is, how close can Atlanta keep the game? Can they? And they do play well at home. They have most of their players healthy, in particular Trae Young and John Collins. And without Westbrook, we know that Harden just gets usage that approaches 50%. It's pretty crazy. So he very well could get, he kind of has a floor of 50 or 55 here. The question of him getting to 80, which is what we need, well, that's how close can Atlanta keep the game, but who else is going to help Harden? So I think that's our decision point for building your cash games and or tournaments. You're going to want to try to get one of those guys. Is it Luka or is it Harden?
Yeah, and Harden without Westbrook has obviously shown his upside throughout the season so far. Like in that price difference, if those it's always, I mean, Giannis is also up there. He's in a cake matchup against Golden State. So that's another reason he can easily put up 50 fantasy points in the first half. But obviously, you're gonna have to see if that matchup, if it's gonna play close, as Giannis can even touch the floor in the fourth quarter. You got to kind of have to keep that in mind. I know that those savings are going to be nice, but in terms of just paying up for positions, other point guards that we should also be considering is obviously Trae Young. He's been remarkable this season. He's priced up in a good matchup against Houston, I'd say. He's priced up at 9.7 on DraftKings. That's another option. He's been playing really well this year. And I personally think I saw Zach LaVine's price at 8.9. Personally, that's a little too high for me. What's your take on LaVine? If Lowry's on a back-to-back, he's playing Charlotte. I do like Lowry when all these guys are out. He's going to be the alpha dog in the offense. So I do like Lowry, even though priced at 8.6. I can see him putting a spiking an upside for sure. What else do you like in the second tier prices at point guards on DraftKings?
Well, fun note, I'm going to throw these out throughout the show, but Zach LaVine, you may not have known this, 2013 Washington State Basketball Player of the Year. I'm
Oh wow!
just pointing that out because I grew up in the state of Washington, so I did not realize that. But I'm going to talk about a few other fun little trivia points. But anyway, he's someone I think that is kind of interesting. But his price has ticked up a little bit there. I like the pace that he'll be getting against New Orleans here. They play at a top 10 pace with a bottom 10 defense for their last 15 games. But we're paying fair prices. So you need him to get 50 fantasy points to start to, quote, see a profit on that baseline price point, but I think that is possible. Donovan Mitchell going against New York on the back-to-back, and New York, the Knicks are going to have to come into Utah at elevation. I'm really not excited about that one. Devontae Graham, Charlotte going against Toronto. We talk about Devontae Graham a lot, but he has been a phenomenal rookie acquisition. He's 7,300 on DraftKings, 73 on FanDuel, 76 on DK, and 31 on Yahoo. I think he is someone who is in play. Lonzo Ball, price has really ticked up, especially on DraftKings. He has earned it. The matchup against Chicago is a little tougher than I think initially I was thinking. Chicago actually plays relatively decent defense. They're not showstoppers by any stretch, but they're kind of in the middle of the pack, edging towards top third, which is not the gimme that you would think of when you think of Chicago, the Bulls as a whole. So I liked those guys. And then going against Washington, the Wizards here, you've got a couple guys from Orlando. I think you can look at Markelle Fultz, DJ Augustine, and then on the other side, Ish Smith and Isaiah Thomas, particularly if Bradley Beal is out. Then the last guy I'm going to mention, then if you have any final thoughts, roll with them. Marcus Smart, 5,600 DK, 53 FanDuel, 24 on Yahoo. But he gets a good matchup against the Spurs. Now, they've gotten a little bit better on defense, but not much. They're barely league average, and they also are playing at a much faster pace than we're used to seeing from the Spurs. So if we have Kemba Walker out, I think Marcus Smart is interesting. Anything else for you at the point guard position?
Yeah, definitely. If Kemba Walker's out, Marcus Smart is someone that we should definitely consider. Austin Rivers is priced at $10 on Yahoo. That's something to keep track on, obviously. With Russell Westbrook out, that's someone that we should be considering. Other options, DJ Augustine is $13 on Yahoo. They've been like sharing the court together at times. Him and Fultz, Markelle Fultz is coming off a career high in points last game. He's been showing great improvement in his first year in Orlando. It's been very promising to see him bounce back the way he has. I completely agree with you. Lonzo Ball has earned it. He's priced at $27. That's someone who I'll definitely be considering in my Yahoo lineups, sure, especially where he can pick up his steals and he's shown his triple double upside of late as well, which is promising on DraftKings as well. But you nailed it across the board on the point guards position. It's going to be obviously to keep an eye on that Kemba Walker news and the Malcolm Brogdon news as well.
All right. If Bradley Beal does play, he's down to 8,500 on DK, 79 on FanDuel, and 47 on Yahoo. I think that's favorable pricing or about right. it also shows that he's probably needs to play about 35 minutes for this to happen. So we don't know if and when he comes back, if they're going to continue giving him 40 minutes per game. I kind of think not. So just have that in the back of your mind. We don't know what's going on with Brogdon yet. Brogdon's former teammate, Joe Harris, there at the University of Virginia, he was the Washington State Basketball Player of the Year in 2010. So there we go. Guys, I do like Joe Ingles going against the Knicks, 6,200, 57, and 22. I think those are favorable price points across the board. I do like Kevin Huerter. I think he's a little better at 57 on FanDuel, but he's 62 on DK, and you get him at point guard, shooting guard. 19, I think, is favorable on Yahoo. And then the other guy that's sort of popping out is Eric Gordon. So we'll have to see if we hear what sort of minutes he may get. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries and such this year, so they're trying to get him back and healthy. They've got their eyes on the playoffs, etc. But the matchup against Atlanta with no Russell Westbrook is going to be helpful. He is 44 on DK, 42 on FanDuel, and 14 on Yahoo. I don't have any news on what he may or may not do for this.
Yeah, they've been slowly ramping his minutes up. And if there's some news on if he doesn't have a minutes limit, obviously, there were times when Chris Paul was out in the past years before with the Rockets. He has shown his ability of spiking an upside even with Harden on the floor, and especially at those prices, I can see him paying that off. But to start the year this year, Eric Gordon was really, really poor. So that's someone to keep an eye on. Other shooting guard options, like you said, RJ Barrett, I know he's in a tough matchup against Utah, but he's down to 5K. He's showing signs of bouncing back. He kind of hit like a mini early rookie wall of late, but that's someone like it's taking a GPP dart on is with RJ Barrett. I'm always a fan of Gary Harris when he's in the low fours on FanDuel, just because he's always shown a steal upside, and he is playing Dallas. They're going to need his defense on Luka. I want to see how Denver does their defensive alignment if they put him on Luka or if they're going to stick to Jamal Murray. That's something to keep an eye on.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, a little real basketball strategy there.
Yeah. So another DeMar DeRozan's in the 7K price point on FanDuel. That's someone who can definitely show up against Boston. I know he's just not been like his old self. He's always priced in the 8Ks, but this year's down in the 7s.
So this is a good one, and I always hate game log watching. I don't mean to cut you off completely there, but if you look at his recent game log, so you're absolutely correct. We're used to see him kind of like in that little bit of a higher price point, not quite as great. In his last, 6 games, this is reverse chronological order, DK points 38, 40, 39, 41, 46, 34, 51. That's a nice little run there. It's actually been on very similar minutes to what he's been doing and very similar shot attempts. Like almost like clockwork, he gets between 14 and 17 shot attempts per game with the occasional gust up to 20 there. But it's just been his shot falling that has made all the difference, and his assists have really ticked up recently, which remember we saw him do that last year quite a bit. Beginning of this year when they had DeJounte Murray back, etc., he was doing, and their Bryn Forbes and Derek White, etc., they had plenty of ball handlers. It looks like just from the stats, the ball is in his hand more in a facilitating role as well, and I think that's helping him out. He's still not taking 3-pointers. Nope. We'll have to wait and see. I think we lost Mr. Rimpack here, so I'm going to carry on for a second. Let me just send him a little note and let him know he is down, but we'll move on to small forward and see what we've got coming up here. And we'll see if we can't get him back. If not, we'll chop this recording up and get him facilitated here. But if we start looking at our small forwards up at the top, of course, we already hit on Luka Doncic. So depending on your site of choice, he could be a small forward, a point guard, or a shooting guard. Giannis is also small forward there again at the top. Guys we want to start looking at that we haven't talked about thus far would be Brandon Ingram at 8,000 or 8,200 on DK, 8,500 on FanDuel and then 38 on Yahoo. I think those are relatively reasonable prices. Bojan Bogdanovic going against New York, 6,400, 5,900, and 2,200. Now that's someone I can really get behind. His he tends to do a little bit more secondary ball handling, especially when Mitchell, etc., are not on the court. And even with Jordan Clarkson, they've been playing them together a little bit. I'm assuming just to kind of get used to those rotations there. So we'll have to see how he comes in on this. But this is a price point I would be interested in. We know that Quinn Snyder tends to play his starters into their fourth quarter rotation, so regardless of the score, so he should at least be somewhat secure there. And then Tomas Satoransky, a lot of hit or miss there, but he is kind of in that mid-tier pricing on all the sites. He's a decent lineup filler, and then if you're playing the one of the shorter slates, he's not horrible. Are you back with us?
Testing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Much better.
My apologies there. Just that's what
It's
happens
okay.
when you're not in your normal setup. So
That's quite all right. Hey, we weren't even supposed to be here. Well, technically I was because I switched days, but you're just helping out here because we had another scheduling snafu. I was kind of hitting what we have on small forward here, mentioning again the guys at the top that we already covered. But if you have thoughts on Tatum or Brown or Fournier, Eric or Aaron Gordon, etc., what do you like in here as we cruise on down the pricing list?
yeah, obviously, I'm sure you talked about Brandon Ingram just having that. I showed that upside last time against Utah, and he's playing against Chicago this time. Obviously, no Drew Holiday, so that's obviously someone you can definitely look at. TJ Warren spiked a huge game last time. He put up 50 points, which is huge for TJ Warren. He hasn't done that since he was back in Phoenix. Um, people, the talk of the end of the last week of December, people were talking about Michael Porter because Mike Malone said he'd be the first guy off the bench, getting 25 minutes, and that didn't happen. He only got 9 minutes the first time he said that. So you want to take GPP darts with him. I'm a big Michael Porter Jr. fan. I feel like he's going to have a bright career. He's amazing with his offensive game, obviously. His defense is definitely lacking, but for someone who's 6'10", 6'11", he can pull up from anywhere on the court. I'm looking forward to see his growth in his overall basketball game going forward. Other people that we should
Did you
take a
say
look.
Michael Porter Jr.? Do you mean the Washington Basketball Player of the Year in 2017?
I was waiting on you for you to say that. So this has been like the state of Washington Player of the Year
Well,
show.
there's
So
one more. So Michael Porter Jr. was 2017. Kevin Porter Jr., no relation, was 2018.
oh, wow,
And and,
Washington
and
just
rounding
like
it out, DeJounte Murray, 2015. So there we
oh
go.
wow.
That's all I have for that fun trivia. I just happened across that list and I was like, hey, we're going to talk about almost every one of those players tonight. Let's have a little fun.
You could probably possibly build a formidable roster with that tomorrow, minus Kevin Porter. But that's definitely something you should consider doing it instead of maybe your
The
Fred
Fred Van
Van Vliet.
Elite contest,
Yeah.
yes. I got to play Patrick McCaw tonight. So.
Other small forward options on FanDuel are taking a look at Eric Gordon's a small forward there, priced at 4-2. If we get news that he doesn't have any minutes limit, that'd be nice. Jaylen Brown's at 7-1. It's something to keep an eye on with no Kemba Walker. And Gordon Hayward is 6-5. I do prefer saving those $600 if needed to pay up. If that's like the difference of you getting another stud, I'm completely fine just going down to Gordon Hayward. Other value options: Tim Hardaway Jr. priced at 4-3. I don't mind that. Outside of that, small forward is always a spot in FanDuel to always look to pay down. Each more kind of played into mid-20s in minutes. I want to say last game against Utah, he's priced at 4-2. That could be an Eric Gordon pivot, depending on what ownership's going to look like. But those are my small forward thoughts on FanDuel. Any cheap players on Yahoo that stand out to you?
We have a memento there. Let's filter it appropriately and get some of our Discount dandies. We've got guys like Michael Porter's an even 10. You've got Rondé Hollis Jefferson at 12. You'll want to take a look at how those rotations worked out. You can do that from via game flow box scores, but Rondé Hollis Jefferson played tonight. Let's see if I can get a quick box score there. Oh, I see that OKC is heading to overtime.
That's nice for Chris Paul chalk, huh?
Unless you didn't play Chris Paul chalk. Can't play all the chalk. Sometimes you got to skip it. So let's see. Trailblazers actually won by a bucket there. They don't have the game flow box score up, but if we look at Rondé Hollis Jefferson, he did play 25 minutes, which is good to see. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. So a marginal game. Kyle Lowry flirted with 50 fantasy points. He would be the guy you would want there. But it'll be interesting to see how Chris Boucher, Stanley Johnson, and then O'Shea Brissett feathered in here with Hollis Jefferson and OG Anunoby. But we'll take a look at that. And of course, if you tune into the NBA strategy show at 9:30 on Wednesday morning, you can get I think it's Sal, it might be Sal Vitri or Adam along
It's
with
Sal and Josh.
and Josh.
Yeah.
Okay, so they'll be breaking that stuff down because that'll be one we want to look at because we were all excited watching the Live Before Lock and the Deeper Dive show to see what was going to happen with Rondé Hollis Jefferson because he was reasonably priced. And he is someone that can really fill it up across the box score. So at 12 on Yahoo, he's kind of interesting. You have Terrence Ross at 11 going against the Wizards. Good matchup for him. There's some additional shots going around with Jonathan Isaac out for the next 2 months with this knee injury. And then anybody else? Patrick McCaw's $10. I think there are better $10 players. As I like to say on Yahoo, not all $10 players are created equal. So he would be someone, even if he's starting, I'm not that excited about. Heading over to our power forward position here, we have at the top John Collins at 8,732. Derek Favors has been playing very well recently. He is at 73, 69, and 25. That's about appropriately priced for him, but there's plenty of guys in the front court for him to go against there for Chicago. And Chicago, not exactly the best rebounding team. So when I say that, or when you hear Adam or Josh talk about that, what that means is the percentage of rebounds that are available. Obviously, they're either going to be offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds. They have a disproportionate amount going to their opponents than average. So they go in and they rank everybody by total rebounds, and anybody that's less than half is not a good rebounding team. Anybody that gets into the 45% is a really bad rebounding team. So you'll want to just keep an eye on that. But that's what that means when we're out talk about things like that. It's just which team ends up with them more likely. And then Bojan Bogdanovic. I hadn't realized that he was power forward eligible, but he is on Yahoo at 22.
Yeah, so onto the power forward position, like you said. Laurie Markkinen priced at $21 against New Orleans. I like that. He's came back last game and played really well on his bum ankle, so I feel like he's good to go. Other prices that stand out to me, FanDuel 7-4 for John Collins, especially where you get the 3 for blocks upside there. I feel like he's one of those better shot blockers in the league. I'm a big fan. Serge Ibaka also at 7-4 is nice. Bam Adebayo at 8-4. He's just been so good and so consistent all year long. I hope he gets named to the All-Star team because he deserves it. Aaron Gordon priced at 6-2. That's someone that we can obviously consider. Other cheap options that we should consider. It does really get pretty barren really quick in this power forward position. Michael Porter's at 3.9. That's if you want to take a shot at. Based on Wendell Carter's news, Daniel Gafford is someone who was very promising in the summer league in preseason. He's priced at 4.7. He's really athletic. He's got those, I want to say, pogo stick legs where he can jump out the gym type of player. Very raw, but he's priced at 4.7. He's can pick up his blocks and someone who we should definitely take a look at it. Depending on what Boylan does with the starting lineup with Wendell Carter out, to take a look at. Gafford did get hurt in the Dallas game. If he doesn't play, that would be a trip back to our old friend and Luke Cornett might get some run. Thad Young is also an option in that rotation. He might sprinkle in a few extra minutes. But outside of those guys, you nailed it, pretty much everyone across the board. Jason Tatum at 7-4 also we should be considering on FanDuel, along with Aldridge. Uh, on to Yahoo, any cheap players that stand out to me? PJ Tucker is $12. He's everyone hates PJ Tucker. There was 2 games in a row that he didn't
He
score a
didn't
single
actually
point.
score, yeah. But he's
But
someone that can do okay. I think a lot of the question's going to come down to what happens with Houston, because you've got Daniel House. What's he going to do? I wanted to mention the Eric Gordon minutes. His first came back. I forget who was. I can't remember if it was Harden or it was Westbrook that was out. But that was a game where they lost in New Orleans. He started and played 22 minutes. His next game was 2 days later. He played 26. His next game was 3 days after that, and he played 30 minutes. So I think we can probably see Eric Gordon get around 30 minutes. Problem is he doesn't do much else besides scoring. And as you alluded to earlier, his shooting percentage has just been, I mean, it's like literally been about 32% this year from the field. That's just horrid. Daniel Gafford's kind of interesting, as you mentioned. His per 36 block numbers is 4. That's pretty good for a rookie.
yeah, and back to like the Sabonis injury. I believe TJ Leaf would usually draw the start if Sabonis is ruled out. I'm really curious to what McMillan's going to do with that starting lineup, especially against Miami. I'm not sure entirely. That's something obviously to keep an eye on. But TJ Leaf is like not the greatest fantasy producer, but he's going to be cheap. And if he's going to be really chalky, he's going to be like one of those guys who I'm going to try to avoid to roster, but especially against a matchup against Miami. But that's the news to keep an eye on, especially with Sabonis. But that covers the power forward position. Any final thoughts on the power forward position for you, Emac, across all the sites?
No, I think we're pretty good there. We'll just take a quick look at center for anybody that didn't get caught up in one of the other positions. Rudy Gobert against the Knicks, 7,900 on both the big sites, 34 on Yahoo. I'm okay with that price point. Good matchup. He seems to get about 40 fantasy points like clockwork. I don't know what kind of upside's going to be available there against the Knicks on a back-to-back and in the middle of their West Coast road trip here. We don't really know what's going on yet with Dallas. We never seem to know what's going on, but you've got Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleba. They're going to need them against the Denver front court. I like whichever one is starting because they'll get the secure minutes, but whichever one is coming off the bench, and there's a chance they both may start, but whichever one's coming off the bench gets the better usage with the second unit. So that's always a tough decision amongst those guys. And then super cheap, let's see, Daniel Tice. Not a great game in his last outing, but he's going against San Antonio. 4,400 on DK, 45 on FanDuel, and 12 on Yahoo. If we need some placeholder value, I think we can look for it there. Amongst the notable guys here, maybe a Capella, perhaps Vucevic. Anything standing out to you as we wind this down, Rinback?
Yeah, I like Capella 7-8 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, let's see what if they priced up Jokic properly. Priced at 9-3 against Dallas, coming off a career high 47 points. I do think he'll garner some ownership, but
Without a turnover. That was even more impressive.
That is super impressive what he did. A couple other intriguing options on FanDuel. I mean, Capella, I like Capella again. Priced at 7-6 against Atlanta. I'm going to think Capella is going to garner an AA ranking in Eddie's rankings, which will be free tomorrow. So it's one of the most popular premium tools. So for those who are listening, keep an eye out for Eddie's rankings. He updates them throughout injury news and whatnot. A lot of people love to see what he's thinking throughout the show, and he puts them out the rankings. So that's something to take an eye on. On Yahoo, I believe Daniel Gafford is $10. So if we have news that Gafford is starting, I'd definitely consider Gafford
And he
against
just
New Orleans.
to pop in, he does stand out as a $10 play if he's going to get the minutes because the blocks are worth 3 on FanDuel. So blocks and steals are worth 3. So I just said his per 36 is 4. Mm-hmm. He's playing about 20 minutes a game right now, and he's got multiple blocks in 9 of his last 10 games. Usually it's 2, a couple of them have been 3, and then he's got 2 games this season where he's had more than 5. But those can add up in a quick. hurry. So if you're looking for tournament upside, he really has it at the minimum price point.
For sure, for sure. That's someone that we should definitely keep an eye on. He's actually $11. Misspoke there, but still a very nice option to consider. It's going to be interesting to hear what the industry has to say about Gafford and what he's going to be owned. If Portland does rule that he's going to be the starter, or it's going to be interesting how what Chicago does with that center rotation with no Wendell Carter.
All right. Reminder, we hit a lot of the Yahoo bargain discount dandies throughout the show, but I do have a little section every day in the cash building blocks article. That's the Yahoo discount dandy section. Started doing that officially last week. So keep an eye on that. I rank the $10 players of note. This, of course, things can change with injury and other people popping up. But the ones, the people that are in those articles, those are our building blocks. So generally what it means is those guys are going to hold their value throughout the day. There may be better value that appears because of circumstances changing, but these guys are kind of the original ones that oftentimes will get lost in the shuffle. And then each day I put in someone who I think is a risky value. And what I do is I describe why. It doesn't mean they're a bad play. It's just an explanation of why they may not be well. So this is always something that you can look at the next day. You can have a good chuckle and just see if things came to fruition one way or the other. So today's risky value was Steven Adams. And I talked about how on his back-to-backs, he had played 4 of them. He had only played about 28 minutes in each of them, which is about what his season average was. But you know, what was he going to do coming off a phenomenal game where he played 35 or 36 minutes last night and then came in on a back-to-back tonight? No Nerlens Noel. This game went to overtime. In his previous matchups against Jared Allen, he was averaging about a fantasy point per minute, so a little bit less than what he normally does. Tonight he had a really good game. It's just, you know, you never know exactly what's going to happen, but I like to point out, if he were to have failed, that would be a way to get a lot of leverage on your opponents because a lot of people were in on Steven Adams. The night before that, it was Thaddeus Young. Now, Thaddeus Young was an interesting one. He ended up getting there just kind of by luck, but I broke down how I thought he was being over-projected by a lot of people based upon his per-minute rates and the minutes he should have seen if Lauri Markkanen had actually been out. So these are just, we try to give you opportunities to understand how to read the data and how to interpret it. It doesn't always mean, I mean, there's two ways to interpret, there's way more than 2 ways to interpret data, but what I try to do is take the counterpoint. It's not even necessarily the opposite side, but I like to point out both sides of something where the masses tend to be lining up and racing to play someone. My favorite was Christian Wood. He was kind of somebody that hasn't come to fruition yet, shall we say. Any final thoughts? Any updates? Well, I put out there that he's played for 4 organizations over the last 5 years. That the middle year he was in the G League the entire year, and people were running to him like he was the second coming. It's like, guys, we just have to be careful. There are good plays like that, and they may work out. But if it's something that you didn't know and you thought, oh, this guy's a young, talented guy, you didn't know he was with 5 organizations over the last 5 seasons, he's a journeyman. You may want to be careful what you're doing, says the guy that rolled out Brandon Knight tonight. So, hey, things change, but it's just it's good things to file away that you can remember in the back of your mind. You know, the fact that Nerlens Noel and Steven Adams have not yet played a minute together on the court. These are little things that are helpful when you're trying to think of tiebreakers. And as you read these articles and such, you file it away. And then as these players encounter similar situations, which they will quite frequently, you'll have a baseline knowledge on them. So just putting that out there.
Definitely, all well said. Especially Christian Wood, someone to keep an eye on. If Drummond gets moved, that's the time to see if Dwayne Casey plans to unleash him. I hope that happens. But I'm moving on to other things. We have a couple other free tools that for the other sports that people should keep an eye on. PGA is back in full action. So tomorrow we have the winning element, an article from Jason Roslin that will be free, and the NHL lineup builder will be free for those who want to dabble with NHL. So check out those free tools. These tools are all part of the Awesome Plus package that you guys should all take a consider by signing up for that promotion that we have going. But Outside of that, it's been a pleasure to be on, Emacs. Sorry for the drop. I hope that can get cleared up. But sorry, my apologies. It was a pleasure to be on with you.
All right. Well, with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here, but we do just want to say good luck.